Surf Splendor.
Well, let's shift to a very somber note,
Yeah.
just because of the timeliness of it. But how was Blauschild's paddle out this past weekend?
Unbelievable. I mean, it was without question the biggest paddle out, and even I'd argue like surf congregation I've ever seen. When if you know Ditch Plains, when you pulled into Ditch Plains roads, the Ditch Plains road right off the highway there were cars that were, double parked even at the beginning of that, and then each of the lots were filled, the parking was lifted, so it was just like the wildest, largest turnout. People were on balconies watching it. ChatGPT, I think, read like 700 surfboards in one of the photographs. The people, the collection of people, that is like any surf scene, like a real confluence of like sects and like groups and like cliques and spots, and everybody was there. I don't think there was like anyone that wasn't, to most degree, and it was just really great. And the celebration afterwards was awesome. And a lot of Drew's friends were saying like, all right, enough of the tears now. Like now it's time to kind of laugh and celebrate. And I think those guys did that really well. And hats off to the people that put it together. I know Rick Solano did a ton of work toward that and just nailed it. And then the photographers that were really celebrating Drew really are just aces. And yeah, it's so sudden, and it was so the fever pitch of Ernesto was so great there. It was the first real swell of the season, and I was serendipitously dropping off more boards and hanging out, and I was like, I'm not going to stay, and a bunch of people were like, you should stay, so I did, and got to hang with him, and Pat Schmidt was surfing a ton, and Andrew was all over that, and ooh, it was wild. I left like Sunday. I left him at Saturday at North Bar, and then came back. Sunday was kind of a washout everywhere, and then Monday was like really clean. It was probably the best day of the whole swell. And we had an offshore wind, a west wind, and up there went really well for certain waves. And here was great. And I had like the full smoker 8 hour surf day. Like woke up at 5:30, done at 5:30, maybe longer than that even, and just paralyzed on the couch. I had Alex Gray in from California, so it was like 20 times the speed of a usual session. It was like, we're going again, we're going again, we'll go again, we'll go again, go again. So we went again and again. So I'm laying on the couch, and Pat called, and just it's like, you're not going to believe it. So it was leveling in terms of like the timing of that whole weekend and how it all went. But in some ways, it's like it was almost magical how it all went that way, and came to peace in that way. So I don't know, an incredible person, incredible legacy to then, you know, see the impact and the people. I don't know. It's like as good as you could, I'd say, want it in terms of a send off. So hats
You
off to Montauk and what they have. That was of there's multiple illustrations of what that community can and does do, but that's just another one.
do you pronounce his name Blauschild or Blauschild?
Blauschild. Blaus.
Blauschild.
Yeah.
So yeah, his aura somehow reverberates well beyond that community,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it made splashes around the world. Can you explain who Andrew Blauschild was?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, obviously, right? But overall, I'll speak to how I've known him. I knew him as kind of like a New York kind of like mover and kind of like curator. I think it was 2007 he began Kook Box with Joel Tudor. Um, and it was a brand that kind of congregated like t-shirts. And the last time I made him a board recently, and I dropped it off, and this was his spiel that he gave to me. And it was, the classic like clothing line, accessory line, go to Japan, do the work, have it ready for the next sequence. But like the collaborative work that he did with Joel, he was like so proud of. He thought it was subversive and cool and funny and weird, and it was all those things. It was for sure. The surfboards were done through, I think, Joel's intention, and Joel set up a lot of the shapers and people, and Andrew kind of did that as well. And this is the beginning of their kind of relationship. So Kookbox was like a big deal, it really was. For a kid like me, it was like, this is an East Coast thing. I think it had New York on the laminate. And like it was cool. It was you know, I had problems with it, I think when I was younger and kind of coming up, that I was like, what is like, why is the laminate say SDNY? You know, I had a hard time with like the West Coast thing, but I think what's so cool about that is that like Andrew kind of came around on all that, and like in the last 6 to 10 years, you know, that dissolved, and that's its own story. And I think he really kind of leaned back into New York and the East End and the people, which is like, I think that was his last like celebrant. Like that, like he had done it all. Like Stern would say, like you've done it all. Like he really did do it all. Like he had like every shot you could ever want of every guy on every swell direction in every pose. um like airs, like was just finishing with Pat and was like, I got every air. Like he was like a like I got every sunset, every sunrise. And it was the people really that he was focused on by the end. And he really wanted to do like he had been working on a book for 20 years, quote, and he was telling me about the book. And so really his legacy was like this. I thought like the work he had done in profiling like the surfers and the people of Montauk and the surrounding area, and the impact, I think by the end was kind of clear that he did that, you know, that he really did touch a ton, and not without the drama. And I think like some people kind of left in a certain way, but for the most part, I think he was in a great place in terms of like how he saw his career and what he had done. He got a beautiful Surfers Journal profile. My friends Corey and Sal from Summer Rental, they did the video for the journal, which came out awesome. If you haven't seen that, please look at that. And then obviously the print feature that he had was, I don't know, as good as it gets. So he was a great herald for us and just a champion dude. He was a cool down guy. Like it was, the music was good, the, you know, his fit, as he would say, was solid, and he was just like always on it. You know, we'd have one rolled up, and those that wanted it, it was there, and life continued session to session, always on the sessions, always. And it would be like, is it good? I'm coming, you know.
What was the story behind his passing?
He was surfing, it's incredible. He was surfing his favorite wave that he'd waited for the whole week. And I was obsessive on this wave. And I was like, now. And he's like, now. And he ended up surfing it on Monday with his best friends, his like the people, all the people that would obsess that on that wave. And had complications a bit in the water, but according to his buddy, they got him on land. He was feeling good, and they tried to get him to an ambulance that would be waiting out on the highway there, and he had passed in the ambulance, and that was it. And as quick as that. And it just,
And it was a heart attack.
yeah, heart attack. Yep. And I guess his buddy was saying that the father had come and said they had background of that in the family, and you know, obviously shocking, but not completely. So it's just a
It's
just
scary.
a
It's
loss.
scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally a huge loss. It's scary though to hear stories about not how frequently, but how sudden that does happen. I've maybe 5 times in my life encountered something similar where it's somebody who maybe family history might be a common denominator,
Yeah.
but they're young, they seem healthy, they're doing
Always.
something healthy at the time, and then it's just like that, you know?
Yeah. The first
Um,
one we ever had was Jack Meyer, and just to quickly eulogize, that guy was like a world-class airbrush artist for Lightning Bolt, Local Motion, triathlete, surfer. Was the only guy when I was a kid that's like, don't play sports, just swim, be a swimmer. And really put a huge emphasis. Our mile swim in Spring Lake was honored for Jack Meyer, and he died of a heart attack while running in Fort Lauderdale, and like the fittest, best guy, and just like that,
at
gone.
what age?
I wanted to say he was maybe like 55, 58,
Okay,
that kind of thing. Like
it's
a
crazy.
shredded wheat and like a world-class surfer, and just gone, you know.
Well, I bring this up just as a PSA to listeners to act immediately if you feel anything at all that you're curious about. Like, I don't know if I've ever told this story on air, but I had a friend, we were in a men's basketball league and we were playing basketball, uh, and he disappeared. We're like, where did Jack go? Got the story later. He felt something, decided to drive home, and he got to the point where he was at a stoplight and home was on the left or a hospital was on the right. And his wife was at home. So he was thinking, like, I'm going to go home, get my wife, then we'll sort this out. I'll discuss it with her. Maybe we'll go to the hospital. And he was sitting at the light and he just got an inkling like, nope, I'm going to go right and go to the hospital. Went to the
Right.
hospital. They got him out. They got him on a table immediately. And they saw, I think, they scoped him or something and they saw a plaque blockage coming through an artery and they were able to deal with it in the moment. They said if that would have happened and you weren't on the table, there's no way you would have made it to the hospital in time, So he
Yeah.
survived, but it
Thank
was
God.
a real lesson of like, oh my gosh, dude, it can happen that quick.
Happen. It can happen. And it's just, yeah, it is a wild thing. It's like time that you spend with people, time itself, right? Reflecting on
Mhm.
like what was when, and it's just the classic grieving process. And it's also different. I noticed too, I'm talking to people following up, Pat specifically, and it's just so different per person and how they kind of see it and how it goes. And it's just, man, it's a reminder, appreciate the people that you have. And I'll say I really was able to gush on him a couple times and he'd be so annoyed. He'd be like, oh, shut up, like enough. But I really would gush on him and tell him like, thank you for what you've done. Like, and because he did a lot and he gave a lot, especially at the end. So anyway,
I wonder if Andrew's book would ever come to fruition. I mean, it's too early
no,
to say,
I think I was at the party. They had a great kind of slideshow after party, and I think the right people are involved in um, cataloging his archive, and Pat was kind of explaining a lot of that. So I think that's definitely going to be the case, and it should be. And people have mentioned it, but it goes without saying that he was like hysterical in just like a lot of photographers are like possessive and covetous, and he definitely had a trove, I'm sure, but he would just let it all go and just laugh about that. And like it was kind of like a flex in many ways. Like I have this much that I'm willing to just like spit or spill and take it. Yeah, fine, it's great, And I thought that the bravado of that was so cool. And it's
Yeah.
so kind of oppositional to how it was when I was a kid, right? With photography and what you have, you covet and you
Hmm.
possess. But he was very generous, especially at the end.
Well, the other timely news story that I want straight from the horse's mouth, New Jersey is making national news last week and again today via popular Instagram accounts like Kook Slams, where surfers are being wrestled to the ground by police officers for not
Yeah.
wearing, quote, beach badges.
Yep.
The videos show what appears to be nonviolent disobedience by the surfers and pretty blatant excessive force by the officers. Can you explain what we're seeing here?
Yeah. So I'm a great candidate for this conversation. And I try to resist certain things, especially on Instagram, but some you just have to kind of mention or kind of note. A big thing with this is what once was in New Jersey versus like now what is. And so back in the day, these towns were like cowboy towns ran by like the police department that then is coupled with like the council and then obviously like the mayor and the cohort that like oversees the beach. And so each town to some degree was kind of different, but like for the most part it was like get all the money you can, get all the badges you can. And as a kid growing up, um you actually could in some ways enforce the idea that like you need a badge to surf here. And if you find like vintage boards in New Jersey, there are like surfing badges that you would have to register. Like 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗏 was a town that had it, and it's like a white little sticker and it said like 1976 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗏 surfing badge. And um
It's like
anyway,
the equivalent of a fishing
yeah,
license.
yeah, it was
Hmm.
just like, dude, so different here. It's like so it's so counterculture, go like rip through a crowd on a surfboard. And so like they try to get surfing beaches. They used to partition surfing zones with like ropes. And this is like the old world kind of Monmouth and Ocean County, New Jersey. So, and you definitely needed the badge to sit on the beach, right? And so what happened, I think it was 2005, was this, it's the public trust doctrine. And this is like, okay, Jersey, wake up. You cannot restrict people's access to the water. If you're a fisherman, hypothetically, like I lose my job, I need to get flounder for my family, like I should be allowed to go do that, or if I want to get a striper and get it under the bag limit and take it home, I should be able to do that if I have the right fishing permit, which is free in New Jersey. You just got to register. So anyway, with these towns, which I start to laugh now. When I was young, I go red But what these towns have done is they just have been like, well, we're not going to abide by that. And it's such a pain in the ass to like, I want you to call a cop here. I want to exercise my riparian right. I want to be, the public trust. Like not everyone is armed as a citizen like that. So a lot of these towns will just get away like bullying the right or wrong surfers to say like, no, you can't come down here. You need a badge. And certain towns, though, were like open access towns that were like, we know the public trust doctrine. We may have been sued already. And like, let them in, let them in. And I was like, um, uh, a community member in one of those towns. And I grew up in one of those towns and I serviced one of those towns as a lifeguard. So I was really familiar with like what once was and what now is and kind of allowed that. So the thesis is like, if you're going to the ocean, no matter if it's at 6 a.m. or 12 p.m., you should be allowed access to that. If you're going to go hang on the beach afterwards and listen to music and sneak Coronas and do all this like kind of beachgoer stuff, then like you got to have a badge to do that. And so what seems to be in the video is that the surfer who I know and is just like the kindest, best, just most legit person, he's going surfing. And prior to the body camera footage, it did not look good. And it was like, oh shoot, like meaning for the police officer, it did not look good. Um, and I felt terrible for Liam. Nobody should be like fisticuffed like that, especially in a wetsuit, especially on the beach that he grew up on. And so anyway, that was a bad look. And then the body camera footage I saw, and that's like a terrible look. And it's like, I think he's on the high tide line saying, you need to get out of the water. You need to come here. And the truth of it is, like, if that ever happens, like, you do not leave that high tide line. If they get you on the beach and they can manhandle you, like that happened. And, it's just like towns kind of like not being aligned with like what the law is versus what once was. And it's just a terrible look. And,
So,
as a
so presumably though, Liam has a beach badge. He's just not displaying it in the moment because he's going surfing, right?
Yeah, nobody would surf with a badge.
Right.
Nobody would
So
surf with a badge.
the police are just being
Nobody.
dicks or enforcing the letter of the law, I guess, is what they're doing in
I
this
don't even
moment.
think, yeah, I don't even know. Like I think that, I heard a lot of background and context that like let's look at it. Like what's the date today? The 27th. It's the end of the summer. It's been an incredible run of weather. We haven't had like a rain day in probably weeks. These people are exhausted. And like, I think prior to that, there was a run of swell and there was like some malfeasances of kids running around. Super crowded beach area there in 𝗏𝗲𝗄. Like there's a bar on the west side of the street, which is very rare for the Jersey Shore. And Liam has no part of that bar, right? But like there is a lot of like riffraff that's runs around. So I don't know. Cops are like stressed. They're at the end of their shift. I don't really want to excuse anything, but I'm sure all that was a confluence of like, I am gonna exact this moment. And shoot, like I really don't see it going any way but for Liam. And Liam's been retained by like one of the gnarlier lawyers here, and that's kind of like a giddy up. Uh so I don't know. I love that kid and I've seen that happen and I've seen people really not understand like what their right is.
Yeah.
Um and man, it's just a brutal thing. And even I like will like stress about going to like a certain place and not have a badge and still be like, I'm just gonna wave politely to the lady and the lady will be like, have fun, get down there, because she
Right.
knows the law and is like, I'm not touching that. I don't want to deal with any of this.
Well, so I've only seen this on Instagram, which obviously has the most eyeballs, but I'm curious if it's making national news. I mean, it's clearly making local news, I would presume, but I wonder how broad it goes.
I'll wait. I'm sure it'll be pretty immediate. Like,
Yeah.
like this, I'm sure he has some kind of summonses, and I'm assuming that they're gonna go ahead and fight those immediately, and then whatever happens afterwards. But
And I'm sure if he has that level of attorney,
there
make
it's
this, they're going to
yeah,
broadcast it through a PR firm as
no,
broadly as they can.
yeah, if I could just like the take that I had is like in this day and age, you are constantly being filmed, like constantly. If you're a lifeguard nowadays, like there's no chance you're going to play with a phone on the stand out of fear that someone is going to film you. I don't understand how you could like really do that nowadays of like take someone, slam them, the girlfriend's screaming, the sister's screaming the whole time. It's just like
Yeah.
such a terrible look. And um,
Well,
yeah,
especially if it's nonviolent civil disobedience. You know, he's wearing a wetsuit. It's not as if
he's wearing a
he's very
wetsuit.
vulnerable in a
He's
wetsuit.
hyper articulate. The kid is so smart. He's on it. He's not a dummy, as they say. And I'm assuming it's going to work out for Liam. You know, I really do. And we'll see. So I don't know. I don't know how national it'll go. I'm like
Well, but
trying to.
the problem, I agree with you. It's going to go towards Liam no matter what. But the problem for the police is and the county is they're going to lose their footing for what they were trying to do in the first place through this one
Yeah.
infraction
Yes.
because it was egregious and it was filmed and now it's going public. It's like whatever you guys were trying to hold on to from the past is now gone.
Totally gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone. And honestly, this probably will pop the cork. I was saying like, one positive thing that will come out of this is that this whole charade is going to end, and the towns that have been following the letter of the law, that I'm going to say right now, have been taken advantage of, because it's like I'll just go there. Like, why wouldn't I? And I'm a local at one of those waves. I'm a badge payer at one of those waves. I will spare you the cost of how much a season badge here is, but it's a lot of money. And if you have kids and you want to kind of not stress and be worried about that, you just pay the badge, you pay the season badge, and do it. And been doing that since, I was probably 20, 21, after teenage years, it's on. And it's a lot. And so I hope these other towns really realize that, like, there needs to be probably more surfing beaches than just one beach per town. When the surf does go to a yellow or red flag, like, they really should like allow surfing anywhere and everywhere, because these people are uh helping in terms of moments of emergency. Like, the amount of off-duty saves are like insane. And
Really?
it's insane. It's insane. And like, I'm to a point now where like you see it happen before it happens, and you run down and you're like, hey, this is not the day to go swimming here. And it's a family from inland that has no clue what's going on. They're there. They made such an effort to get there. They have dinner set up for the afternoon, and it's just like, it's just awful to watch. And it's always on hurricane swells. It's always on hurricane swells, with an afternoon draining tide. And it's just like, it's over.
So let's use that to segue into some of your origin story. And it might be covering things we covered in 2018, last time we
Yeah.
recorded together.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But let's cover it anyways, presuming we have new listeners since then.
Yeah. Um,
How is
yeah,
surfing? So I, I'm curious, when you grew up there, when you first discovered surfing, was it counterculture?
it was complete. It was like, as there, New Jersey has a great like punk and hardcore and like skate surf background and like pedigree, I'd even say. And it's like underneath New York, we're like a little bit more like born under punches kind of thing, of like, we're like, we got to go to New York to kind of like see the better acts. And then we had Asbury Park that was right there, and that had a great skate park for a bit, and they had a huge music scene. So like the Gen X cohort that was just above me, maybe by between like 7 and 10 years, those guys were like the guys that are like, this is how you do it. This is what's quote cool. So for there was just like guys that were totally punk rock, like Sid Abruzzi, basically. Like, that was the like grail of like, you're in a band, you work at night, you rage, and you just like do the best you can in the water. It's like, and it's just, I don't know.
What did your parents do for work and what did they feel? How did they feel about you embracing that
Yeah. So
lifestyle?
my parents were completely the opposite of all that. My father was born in Poland, in like communist Russia, occupied Poland. I think he's been to the beach maybe 4 times his whole life. My mom is a daughter of Polish immigrants, was a debutante, like has been in the ocean 15 times her whole life. Like, it's got to be like sunny, 74, no waves, windless. It's like never happens here, right? And that's like, oh, it's beautiful. So they were like, go surfing, like, it's nice, go. So they were super supportive, but could not have been they were just completely clueless. And in the best way, I mean that, like, I owe them a ton, but they were just completely like, it sounds great, how can we help? um and yeah, it was just something to like escape. I hate to say that, but it was just a run and go up to the beach. And we lived a block from the beach, so that was amazing. And I would just go and get lost and we'd surf and we hung at the beach and it was the same system that my kids are kind of doing now. I was at the Pavilion Beach right there and we had a gang of 10 boys and we all kind of came up together. It was boogie boarding to surf to boogie boarding, standing up on the boogie, walking the boogie up the beach to the surfing beach to then get thrown out to be like, we need the hardboard, to then dragging the hardboard up a jetty to then get thrown out again and then being like, can we please? And the guys would be like, get out of here, you idiot. No, it's insane. Like mangling kids, just mangling kids. Like, and we were
So
just like, okay.
did they did your parents not associate surfing with that punk rock counterculture?
My mom was smart. She knew, like she understood, like she was a baby boomer type, like loved like the Stones and understood that, but like wasn't astute to know like what CBGB was or what the Stone Pony was past like the Bruce Springsteen era of that. Like McCann's bar was the big bar in Asbury on Cookman that hosted Springsteen back in the day, and she'd talk about that, but she'd be like, it's a dangerous city, don't go there. Like it's like she was all like, no, no, why? Yeah, so it was just totally like, yeah, total punk rock non-convention of like, this is great, this is alluring, nobody does this, this is hard, almost impossible, I want more, and that was it.
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were there obviously you already alluded to the fact that you have a day job, quote unquote. What were
Yeah.
their expectations of you professionally or to do with your career?
They were really clear. It was they were both academics. My father's an oncologist or a hematology oncology guy. He's like leukemia, cancer, blood cancer. And my mom was a teacher and then became a librarian and still is. And they both still work. She'll work a whole school year, and my dad works probably 70 hours a week, 60 to 70 hours a week. And it's like I was biking home today from the beach thinking about it. It's like you guys are just it's endless. So they basically were like, go to school, um, think about a career, think about something that aligns with like where your life has been. And they weren't like deliberate, but they would kind of like they would say like this seems like it's working out. And I think there was a point where in high school I realized like, hey, the lifeguarding thing really was great. And it provided confidence and a life, and it introduced me to building boards by way of repair work. And they saw that and they were like, man, what are the older gentlemen that you're working with do? And I'm like, oh, they all teach. And I go, oh, teaching sounds good. And so it was just that template kind of like, how do I keep this going? This is what this cohort's doing. I'll probably look into that. So I went away to college. I think I fooled around with business classes in the first semester, and then I'm like, no way. I pulled back and I just went to the humanities track and then kind of like narrowed it to English, and that went well. Like I was good at it. I really liked it. And then they were like, well, where are you going to teach? Do you want to teach babies? Do you want to teach little eighth graders, or do you want to do high school? And I had great professors, and I was like, these guys, these are the people. Like, this is the way. You got these totally zany, just driven, smart people that live a life of like culture and like consideration and are telling you about music and art, and they're not even they're not even supposed to teach that, but they're like, no, 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 you're blowing it. This is what you want. And that was convincing. So I said, oh, I'll just do that. So I had a bunch of great mentors in college, and they suggested a track, and that fast tracked me to the college life and teaching in college. So that was it.
English specifically, right?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2005 with a bachelor's in English, and I actually went originally to University of Hawaii at Manoa. I enrolled there, and it was just so different than New England, like so different and like drastically different. And I just said, I'll just surf Sunset Beach and stay on the North Shore. And then I reapplied to this New England college, a small MFA then that was affiliated with my mentor at Providence College. This guy, Chard Denord, he was just a New England poet, a total just ledge, just like a caricature of that, like just the face and he was just amazing. And he just said, come to the program. You'd come to the program. You'd love it. You know, the high pitch kind of thing. And so I was such a grom, you know, I was so naive. And what was nice about it was low residency. I would just show up for these like 2-week kind of residency kind of parties basically. And then we did it all by mail. It was pre-internet online. Yep. Just packets. Like you got to write this, you got to do that. Manila envelope. It was the biggest anxiety, but you mail it and you get it back and you look through it, and it was great. It was just the best times, honestly. And
They were just writing assignments, basically.
yeah, writing assignments, read these 10 books, respond, tell me about this. And what's nice about that program, it was less analysis and it was more like your own original work. So you had to create, you know, let's write a short story this week. Let's do 7 poems and they need to be by this kind of parameter, this prompt, and get them in, you know, and if you wanted it, you'd do it. And I wanted it pretty bad. So I got into that, and it was a boom for MFAs. I think that was the first short-term terminal degree. You know, it was like, this will get you into College Avenue. And there's no doubt, like, the poet life's a grind. It's like so different than anything else. Like shaping compared to poetry is just a dream, you know, but the publishing world and like the who do you have to know, and it's just like it's pretty intense. So it worked out great to just, you know, think critically for a living, to meet people, to teach people that really have like a story to tell, and then from there to help shape them and move that stuff. So it was just like an easy fit. And then the lifeguarding was there in the summers, so
Right.
it worked out well.
Um, I'm curious how that career path has evolved now. Like, how long have you been teaching at the college level?
This will be my 19th year there,
Crazy.
and this will be like 16 full-time tenure track
Okay.
year, associate. And then I put up for full next year. Next year will be like that's
Okay.
as far as I can go as a full professor there. But I've been
Oh,
there full time for 16 years. And
and where are you at specifically?
it's Brookdale Community College. It's
Okay.
Monmouth County's like community college. We're the best, the top dog. My colleagues in the English department at Brookdale are like beyond anything, and I'm just so lucky to have them. And the students I gush on, but I'm just jacked up. You know, it's new
So
people.
sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but if when you were getting into it 20 years ago almost, and there wasn't talking about poetry, making a living as a poet, it's a
yeah,
grind, and there really is no viable economic model unless you're probably at the very top of the heap,
yeah.
which would start to eradicate students, I would think, pretty quickly. So how different is that now, 20 years on? Are there fewer and fewer students? Is it harder to find people? Um,
Yes and no. You know, I think like for an MFA or for community college student.
well, that's a good, yeah, I guess. I'm thinking in your
In my
specifically with who
world,
you're dealing with.
oh, they're endless. And like I
Okay.
think we just got the email that like nationwide enrollment is down, and it has been for probably the last like 5 to 6 years. But fractional. And this year I think we're almost even. We're like a tenth of a point of a percent down, which is great. And Brookdale community colleges serve a much different demographic than what once was the 4 year kind of go explore, check it out, feel it, and run. And post COVID, and I think with people's awareness of mental health and who really is ready and who isn't ready, I think parents are becoming smarter, and I think they really do service a huge gap of people. And I mean that like specifically, like people that kind of get lost between what a public school may or may not be able to do. And so it's, you know, there's always like templates, you know, there's the transfer student, there's the student post divorce coming back, there's people, military service members that I've had for decades at this point that I just am blown away by. You know, it's just, it's awesome. It's the dream job. I said it, I think, the first time with you, but it really is. And everyone's like, well, with ChatGPT, you're in so much trouble, you know, and it's like, I'm not. It's almost made it easier because they're getting so much like so much more armed and so much more like I'm, you know, and even like the punk rock, like I'm not using that, or just like I can't use this. This is too much work. Like I'd rather just figure this out myself.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah, I could see that.
it is. I mean, that's a real thing. Like there are definite sociopaths that are going to do what they have to do what they have to do. But for the most part, people are like, you have to be really industrious to use a lot of the software, and you have to be really specific. And there's so many of like, not just the hallucinations, but more so like the pattern work that's just like, if you have half a brain, you're like, oh my God, this reads horribly. I can't do this, this bail.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's changed the class for sure in a better way.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's been a great career. And yeah, and I think
What
students
are
are
you,
smarter now than ever.
what are your or what are your professional ambitions outside of teaching? Do you have publishing ambitions or things that you
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm working on a project now that I'm hoping to kind of pitch to the journal, to the Surfers Journal. I would love to kind of get writing again. I'm kind of out of the fog of career, and I do have to start kind of getting a little bit more published work done. And I have like, I think like stories that I've marinated on for 25, 20, 15 years that maybe I've worked in and have been like connected to for 15, 20 years. So it's like I'm getting to a point I think I can do that. A book would be great too. And I think I have that in me. I've been reading and helping and facilitating other people's books on like history of New Jersey, or just looking at other people's longer papers that they have, and podcast. Obviously, I'm a kind of a devourer of a lot of that kind of stuff. So storytelling in general, I think I'm getting toward. But for me, it always takes a while. It takes like a long time to kind of plot and think and then execute, So
I mean, you're spread thin. You've got a bunch of things. You've got
I
a
am.
full
I am.
family. You've got two full careers.
It
You want to
is.
surf all the time.
Yeah, and
So,
like
but
you can do them, but they're not going to be something that's going to be worth doing.
right.
So
So I'm curious, just if you unabashed, like, what is your ultimate ambition? Is it a great American novel?
no, absolutely no way. No, I think like a history of Monmouth County surfing would
Okay.
be amazing. I think that there's a couple anthologies and collections on surfing that are still not mined and not like brought together yet. Maybe they're like
Gotcha.
these kind of syntheses on East Coast surfing, or the impact of even New Jersey across the world. And it's a crazy thing. Like we're so proud to be where we're from, and we're everywhere. The Jersey folk, we're every publication, every group, every cohort, every island, even the Florence brothers, they're from Jersey. I always want to write Jersey strong on Nathan's posts, and I resist, but like yeah, it's insane. I'm the biggest Jersey fan there is. I feel like I have an obligation being put in certain positions to represent that, and to like
Yeah.
authentically say like, hey, this is who we are, and this is what we do, and this is how damn hard it is. Some people are pretty cool about it, but it's not easy doing anything around here. And yeah, I think that story needs to be told in a real way. There's tons of people that try to tell it, and a lot of times it either gets like beat up by other voices, or it gets like pushed down, or it's made to be like a certain thing, like Jersey Shore, rah rah, or like all that kind of stuff. And beyond, and badges, and dirty water, or windmills, or all this other kind of like weird socio-political stuff. But for the most part, the Jersey story is like industrious, dreamers, like we're total people that tried to escape New York merchanthood and kind of get away from that. Like both of Rebecca's and my grandparents were men that did that. Like one was a trucking magnate and one was like a publishing magnate. And they were like, we're out of North Jersey. Like, let's get down there. And the families just were like, let's stay. This is it. And I think that's like everybody's story around here. Everyone like found something, they did it, and the families believed in that legacy, and they remained. Um,
Yeah. Good. Well,
and that's not every.
I'm glad to hear you share it because you do defy the stereotype in a lot of ways. But the more
Yeah,
I've kind of gotten to know New Jersey, the more I realize you exemplify exactly what New
yeah.
Jersey is,
That's a great compliment. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of us. There's like, I'd say hundreds. We just actually did this kind of like video profile series through the Inertia, where they're battling like New Smyrna, Outer Banks, Montauk, and New Jersey. And again, Summer Rental, Sal and Corey did the New Jersey one, and Sam and I got some good clips in there, and they did the whole crazy winter surf story. And I went to the Montauk premiere and it was pretty and beautiful. And Rebecca was like, this is like a really great like advertising campaign to come visit Montauk, but ours is like pretty roots and pretty down to earth and pretty authentic to like the the scene that we are, you know, and it's got pork roll and a bunch of stuff in there. So look at
I remember the Ashton Goggins, the no contest. What's the name of
yeah,
the
so that
series?
was that was the New York one, and I've been actually talking to Ashton in the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about a New Jersey one, and he has his kind of hat in for that, and he was hoping to get quote the young professor in there. And we'll
Yeah.
see. I would love to. It would be an honor. I like hosting, and again, for me, it's more like these people cannot go back to where they came from and say like it sucked. It's like there's no ways the people are crazy and the food's like it's a huge responsibility and there's a ton to share too. It's not like we're like it's not like when you came, it wasn't like I was like cherry picking and we were just straight rolling from spot to spot and this is it and this is it. And you were like, that's great, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into board building.
Yeah.
How did you mentioned discovering board building through Ding Repair, but
Mm.
beyond that, how did you get into it? And then also, who are the guys? Was there opportunity to mentor? Was there opportunity to get raw materials? What did it look
Yeah.
like at that time?
Yeah. So it was for me, it was just it was Clark. I ordered direct through Clark. I remember I ordered like probably 5 boxes. I think it was 25 boards. And then I sat on those for a bit. I kind of understood templating and played around. But before that, it was collecting tools. I think it was like probably 6 to 7 years of like ding repair work through the borough, doing lifeguard repairs, and then like my friends. And so I would like I'd go to Hawaii and I'd go to like they had fiberglass Hawaii there, and I was like I'd buy pigments and my shaping square I bought from there. It's still the same one that I'm dying to find the same exact replica of. I think I got a planer there from 𝗬𝗿𝗄𝗄𝗍𝗂 at Sunset Beach, $30. That was like a game changer. And then so yeah, I just would come home. I would try to kind of shape, I'd glass them myself, sand them myself, ride them, do it all. And that was all out of a garage. And so that ended up turning into something that was a lot of work. It was a tremendous amount of juggling and it just got harder. So over time, the internet boom hit. You could order online. I think 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏 was like the first kind of dealer of like racks, you know, like good adjustable racks. So I think I splurged and got those, and that was like a game changer. And then like other older guys than Chris Chase specifically, he was a big like union iron worker, single. And so he just like built a little bay and kind of showed himself how to lay an outline out. And John Carper's Shaping 101 was there. So I'd watch that and it was good. And also it kind of like it was not confusing, but like I thought there was definitely like an easier way. I hate to say that, but I really was like convinced. So I would just try to find like other people and other avenues. So I started to get boards made. I used to get Michael. I'd get Channel Islands, and then I was getting 𝗏𝗿𝗏𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and they were great. And but they were just like maybe I grew, but they were like undersized. So I started to get Steve Siebold boards, and he's from San Diego. He's a hand shaper. He was kind of generationally just below, I think, like or he was the same age as Warner, but like Hank's the story Steve would say is that like Hank went to the famous Australia trip and like Steve could have, but Steve was just parents were like, you're not going to Australia. Hell no, you're staying here. So he was like just right there with Hank Warner and that cohort, Crystal Pier and that section of San Diego. And he was incredible. And he still is, and he's a great shaper and he's just a thinker. And he would summer in New Jersey. So he would come and just for a month, he had great clients there, the 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗲s, and he would stay with them. And so he could like come in and be like, no, you want the lights like this and you need it. So I ended up building a bay, and he kind of coached me through like, this is how you set it up. This is like how you want the lights to be. This is how you want the shelves to be. That sounds great. And he'd always be like, don't overthink it. Just do it, shape them, get them glassed and move. So at that point, it was like, man, I got a great little bay. I started to shape them, and Chris Chase at that time had Brian Wynn glassing all of his boards, and Brian is the guy that really was doing the same kind of thing that probably most guys were doing, and said, like, I know there's a better world out there. I know there's something else. And he went to California, and he went specifically to Moonlight. And Brian has all the respect in the world from all those guys, and he has all my respect as well. And Brian was a great polisher there, a pin liner, and he can do it all. He's a great shaper. And so Brian was doing a lot of great contract lasting work then. He still will dabble here and there, but for the most part, he's focused on his own work now. But Chris and myself would kind of team up, and we'd run down there, and I started to get my boards glassed through Brian, and it went great. It was awesome. It was just a huge learning curve of like, hey, the board needs to be like finished this way for it to look that way. And so Brian was patient and cool and generous and all those things that, I think everybody is until a certain point, and it got to a point where I'm like, this is a lot of work. It's a lot of driving. So I started to kind of collaborate with other people and started to get the boards glassed differently. And then I finally took it all on at my place. And I've had kind of like a band of merry men there for about 5 years now. And that's been going well. So that's kind of the long story short, but I don't use a machine. I just hand shape them. We do like 5 to 7 a week to get it going, and that's enough.
So back to the beginning of the story, you said you were getting Channel Islands and Michael
Yeah, yeah.
Barron's. Why were you ordering boards from California?
Yeah, so I would argue that like Jersey then was like a board desert. And it was just like you could shape and glass and do them all yourself, but you were getting all the blanks from California then. All the material you were getting sent from California too. I'd get it from, I think it was Fiberglass Supply out in Oregon. So they would send like 5-gallon pails, acetone in gallons. It was crazy. It was just so cost prohibitive and just hard. But they were
So
great. Like the
there
boards were great.
wasn't there weren't local builders.
No, no, there were not local builders, and there were not local
Crazy.
builders that wanted to like work with 15 to 14-year-olds that had a bunch of questions and were aspirational. I mean, there was Paul Baymore, and Paul did a lot of boards out of like Monmouth County and even Atlantic and Ocean County. But for the most part, it was just like it for me and my generation of these kind of like that momentum era of surfboards and surfing, which is when I came up. There was nothing. There was nothing, and there wasn't anything even retro. It was just like, that's not cool. The economy was probably hard, and it just like was like, get the flip tip thruster and hope to God you were light enough and skilled enough to like move it down the line. And that got exhausting, and so that's kind of why I started shaping.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
even the story of you getting 5 boxes from Clark Foam, 25 blanks,
yeah.
it's a huge capital outlay for something that has no return on the investment at that point.
It was like I was living the lifeguard life. I was probably one of the younger guards then. I was hired on the beach at 15. So I was like a junior guard product of like first era junior guard program, rose up. And at 15, it was like, you're hired and on the beach. So it was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 5 years of guarding. I cap out, I think, at like second tier pay at 5. And I had 2 more years, 2021. I maxed out my pay in 7 years. So, I mean, I lived with my parents. I had no
Yeah.
overhead. I was totally like obsessive. So every penny went. And dude, I hate to tell you, 25 Clark blanks then was not a lot of money. It was like, some of those blanks were like $40 each, $68 each. And so it wasn't a ton, but I had to do it. I had to know. It was like, I'm done repairing. I did repairs yesterday, but like then I was like, I need to know what this is all about. I got to try it. And I was obsessive on surf videos, and I had seen enough clips of that, of like Brewer and Lopez shaping, that was really, I was kind of turning on, so to speak. I'd been to the North Shore. I'd seen that, and
Yeah.
I saw a room there too. I saw like a really good room there. Yarborough is a great shaper. Hell yeah. And he does all the Brewer, helped Brewer during a lot of the fabrication of the balsa boards. And he's just the best. And like a real Texan, like tough, but direct. And he had good rooms. And I don't know. You just like, you see it and you're like, that's it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So the elements for listeners I mean, I'm sure they've gleaned it from listening to this show if they've listened for any amount of time, but the elements involved are obviously working with resin and the materials is one thing that takes a long period of time to kind of figure out, which you had been doing through
Yeah.
repair work. And the other
Yep.
thing is learn time on the tools, like actually shaping the
All it is.
foam itself. And that obviously takes a lot of time. And so there's, as you evolve as a shaper and in your business, there's kind of this curve of when are people willing to pay you? Like, when are you good enough for people to actually start buying one of those 25 boards?
Yep.
When is it worth it for them and help you kind of facilitate your own learning curve as you get better and better?
Yep.
So when did that happen?
I think like if you repair enough boards with people and they drop the board off and they pick it up and they pay you and you learn to like charge eventually, I think that starts to stimulate like trust and like they're like, well, I'll give you a couple $100 for the blank, you know, like let's do it. Um, so I think that's all it was. It was like all my
Okay.
close friends, all my good buddies, they were like, let's do a board. And I had started to ride my own. Like I made a really cool like just like a rounded nose egg and it had like a hard edge in the back and it had like a kind of like a soft like short board but fuller like a rusty rail if that makes sense through the front, so it was like fast, it had no bottom complex, it was just flat and it surfed great and my buddy surfed it and they surfed great on it. And I think it was just that it's like I want a longboard, let's do a fish, let me borrow the fish, let me borrow the, so I just got like small builds in with them. And then it started to get to a point where I really I actually did a little bit of like label shaping for other labels, like just these like pop-up New York kind of like I want to have a surfboard company and I helped them like shape the 25 boards for that. So they would supply the blank and I would husk them out and they were probably terrible, but they were fine, you know, they worked. So I got enough practice through that and bigger builds, but I don't think like the real orders started coming until I probably shaped, I don't know, like over 100 for like myself and close friends and family, maybe more, maybe even, I hate to say, maybe even like 500, you know, like it took a long time to like get them in a place where I was willing to take on the stress of random guy X needing a lead time on his, you know, 7/6 twin pin, you know, like I avoided that for a long time, honestly. And like I avoided retailers for a long time too. Like some kids nowadays are like, yeah, I'm in the shop. Let's go. I'm like, dude, you got nerve and nerve. It's like I did not have the nerve then to be like, shit, like I hope I can fulfill this order and I hope they're good enough, you know? So I think like generationally, it took me a long time to get to a place where I was willing to sell the boards, let alone trust a retailer to sell them. And I think that's benefited me. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of people come and go, like a tremendous amount. I was kind of doing the Rolodex a couple nights ago, and I was like, "Fuck, it's wild how many people will be the new hot thing, and then all of a sudden they're into leather making, or they're doing coffee bean roasting, or they're making knives now, or it's like you have no idea the mopeds this guy makes. They're the best mopeds." I'm like, "That's so sick, dude. I'm so happy for you. It's great. You're not going to believe it. There's no money in surfboards." I'm like, "No way. Are you really? There is no money. Are you serious?"
Well, that's what I was going to say too. Yeah.
Yeah,
It might
yeah.
not be that they lost interest. It's just,
There
it's a
is.
tough.
There is some of that. I think there was like a like a builder mania for a bit there. It was like the
Yeah.
DIY craze of 2005, 6, 7, and everybody was like, "Let's go." And that calmed down. Then that hit a plateau again with Instagram. And then there was like the like hand shape, you know, and I think that's now calmed down because everybody's using machines. So it's just like just waves, you know, literally.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you have a crew that's helping
Yeah.
you out now. I presume that's with lamination.
Yeah, well, so that was probably like 4 years ago. For years, I was like, I'll just do it myself, or I'll just trust this one glasser, and it's just not worth taking on people. And I just don't know if it's worth like who are these people? And I got a lot of like, hey, I'm interested. Are you hiring or are you willing to train me? And it was just always like, and my parents always, which is a great perspective, like they were like, you need like a little apprentice guy. I'm like, no, I don't. No way, no way. And I ended up like a couple people just came in my life and like all at the same time, you know, it was just like, hey, I'm interested. And I just gave the one guy a shot. Steve Martin, he's gonna actually come back and laminate next week for me. He's got
I love
my
his comedy.
he's the best. He's
And
the best.
banjo picking.
It's just, he's such a wise ass. Anyway, so Steve's a great guy, and Steve like just kind of like came up with me throughout the beginning. I have the glassing company's called 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and it's just like a bunch of guys that are, we have other jobs, we have other things that we do, but we kind of come together, and it's a good group. So it's Steve, and then James Reale runs 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and he really was like, hey, this is what I'm born to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm gonna do. Do you need anybody? And so I just, asked a handful of questions, and then it was kind of game on, and it's been since. And I think he really is. He's a fin maker. He makes fins, all my fins basically. They're all made, synchronous with the boards that I'm making. So it's just become like this wellspring of like, like the boards are serviced. It's perfect. Like I almost want to do for certain people like Pat Schmidt, like I'm only doing glass-ons, certain other people. So it's just like James and I together are really figuring out a ton about the fins and the boards and how that kind of works together. And he does a lot of the laminating. He'll pitch in with pre-sands. And then I have Kylie. Kylie's like same as me, guy that has a ton of other kind of avenues of work and thought, and like belief, but also loves to sand and is a great sander. He's like a bass player, so it's almost like they find each other, like these things, it's like a band. And then I have a couple mercenaries that come in and work. And then I have little Sam Sars, and he's my little Grom. He actually is working for Channel Islands now. He got the sanding job at CI. So he's like, at CI, this is how they do it. We should really be listening. And I'm like, all right, dude, like you're out of here in a minute.
So
Um,
where is he? CI in Carpinteria?
yeah, yep,
So he
up on
comes
the
out here?
yep. So he goes to UCSB, and that's his dream school. And yeah, he learned a lot with me. He was the Instagram like solicitation. I'm like, no chance. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? Why not? And so he did 4 years under me. And, I will openly say I taught him everything. He is industrious, he's smart. Um, he's like, I don't know if he's a generational paradox, but he's like the part that gives me a ton of hope. Like whenever you have people on, you had Nainoa on, who was awesome, and even Jeff McCallum and Chris Christensen, and those guys, they helped and heralded a ton of people. But I would argue there are more out there than we think sometimes. Like when we're in our trenches, it's like there's no one that is going to do this and step up. But I think there are. You just got to give them a chance, and you got to like listen to them. And Sam's one of those people. So he's 19, I think, and he can stand a board beautifully and understands like a timeline and shows up and doesn't blow it. And
So
that could
that
just be East Coast thing, but for the most part, he's great. So that's our crew.
that part of you have to find them and then you have to listen.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing for you to say. You have to listen because for me, I think the crux is you mentioned there was years where I knew I needed help,
Yep.
but I didn't go out. It's tough to find people and then to train them or whatever it is.
It's
It's tough to
impossible.
and it's tough to give up responsibility and to delegate, and put the trust in their hands. But so I'm curious about what the evolution is from then committing to the process of actually bringing in people and
Yeah.
then getting to the point where you're at now. Because I would imagine it wasn't as seamless as you just made it sound. You
No,
five showed up and five remained. You
yeah,
probably
no,
had to get rid of some along the way.
no, like I definitely had like one or two like oddballs that like did not work out, and like you smell them right away. Like if you're at a vineyard and you're in a group of people walking, David, and you have like four couples, like you would know the kooky couple that has never had a glass in their life,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
others do appreciate it. So it's the same with board building. It's like you walk in and the guy's like writing down like inventory and asking you like, so when I order my resin, I mean, when you order your resin, what, it's like that guy's out. The kid that's like, I'll stay, and if you need me, I just swept up real quick. Like, can I get you a coffee? Like, like, the affect that's going to be lasting. And the truth of it is like the reason James is still there and Kylie still is and Steve considers to come back and these other guys is because like there's more to surfing than surfboards, and there's more to like my brand or like my surfboard company than just surfboards. Like the priority in my shop is like to surf, and it's to like spend time together and to like do those things potentially synchronously. And I know like you have to pay and you got to make the bills, but there's enough time in a week to do both of those things most times. And so like that whole crew is on that same program. And if you're not, we're not the crew for you, you know. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of how it goes everywhere. It's like LSD is LSD because those are the boys, you know, and it's there's no other way. Like, and maybe someday, but like for right now, like it works. And if you have a band like that works, like it stays that way. And Britt Merrick really like he should get a lifetime achievement award for the whole spiel he had on the Dead, on the Grateful Dead. um Chaz got bodied by Britt, bodied. I ran the beach to that interview, by the way, and I was screaming, pumping my fist in the air. And so the indictment on the Dead is like, dude, they've been together for so long. That says something in itself. The body of work on top of that length is also another thing. And you know, and the Americana is the last, you know, it's just it's so uniquely American that you can't deny. I personally cannot deny that. So if you got a good band, they stay together. If it's a bad band, they're great, but then they're gone, you know. And I always like the Beatles. I always like these bands that kind of did something and kind of held it together.
The Beatles didn't hold it
Well,
together
they
though.
it's like six
I mean, they're a
great
great band who
albums,
produced,
seven
yeah,
seven
but it
great
was
albums, and then
a
yeah,
very
and like
limited run, right? What was it,
yeah,
10
I
years
don't know.
probably?
10 years, but prolific. They did it. And honestly, even if like it all stopped tomorrow, like for me at least, it's like it has been such a great arc that I've had of like from the backyard to then the contract world back to the backyard. And in many ways, you know, it's we're definitely a grassroots crew. It's not nothing too major, you know, we're
I'm
just
not,
making
yeah,
boards.
I'm trying to make your point for you. I wasn't trying to argue against you with the Beatles thing, but to your point, it's a rarity because even great bands
Yeah.
don't have the rapport that you're talking
Yes.
about, or they
Yeah.
can't fake the rapport for more than 10 years, you know, despite their incredible success. It is that rare to have a band that sticks together for
Yes. I
longer
agree.
than that. But what I'm also curious about with your scaling your business is ultimately the conversation.
Yeah.
You've got a day job and 5 kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, you bring those people in to delegate, but if you have to fire them, that takes time. And then replacing them takes time. All of that takes time. Where do you squeeze in the time?
Yeah, like this morning I'll illustrate like I woke up, got them breakfast up, took two down to the beach, set up the beach, went to my shop, took out the trash, set up the work that's going to be done at 4 p.m. today. We'll start. We have a film crew that's coming in for this project. I lined up the filmer, going back to the beach, kind of tied them up, came here to do this. I got to go airbrush a board right after this and get a lamb kind of ready to go. I got to pick up fiberglass. So, you know, my triangle is small. It's like the beach is half a mile that way. My shop is about a mile that way.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of triangulating, and yeah, it takes some time, but the truth is like the more you work with these people, the more like they're on the same plane as you. I think details are important. So we're a pretty detailed group. The scalability, I'm going to say that like we definitely have scaled up for sure, but like prior to that, we already kind of knew it was coming, or like we knew pre-COVID, like this is like getting really busy. And then COVID was like this wave that kind of washed over a lot of people, and we did not take the bait. Like, and I proudly say that, like, we did not scale up because orders are up, and I wasn't getting Mencel surfboard wallets and keychains and fins and traction and all this other stuff made. It was more just like, "Ooh, this is great. Let's kind of secure this and let's make sure that we can kind of sustain from here, you know, for maybe longer than just a handful of years." And that's kind of where we are. We've built like a better, I think, brand cachet, if that makes sense. Like I've got like better people running the boards. I've eliminated certain people that were not really like not really part of like what we were really trying to do. You know, they liked the idea of the color of a board and they liked the look of like a board, but it wasn't really like they were really weren't maybe even surfers. I'd say they surfed, but they weren't surfers. and we really invested in retailers. And I think that's also something that like a lot of people were like, oh, we're over the retailers, we're going direct to consumer. And it's just like, that's not the way. And I know for some people it is, and I don't mean to demean like the custom board building market, because I'm in that too, but I'm trying to make boards for people that like I know they need, and I'm going to make that board anyway for that person. And maybe it's like 5 a year, which is kind of great, right? And then also like I know these retailers have like a certain demand, and I try my best to fulfill that. But after that, David, and myself, like these are all of them right
Yeah.
here. Like this is my baby, this is my baby, this is my baby, this is a new one, this is an old Seabold, my baby, Rebecca's baby, Rebecca's baby, and this is the 8-year-old's baby.
So a
So
dozen.
we have a ton of boards that we ride every day that we want to ride. Rebecca's got siblings, I got best friends. She did a number count that I did. This is pathetic. I did 150 orders just out of like my phone, my notebook, like myself, like unaccounted, right? And she's like, what? Like the order cards from the shop come in home, and she's like, what are these? I'm like, those are all the
Yeah.
people, friends, and surf with and hang out with. And I'm doing like a quick one for no problem. I'll just do a quick one. Let's go, you know.
Right.
And so that chews up my year. That's it. I don't have more than that, dude. And I don't want more than that. I
Yeah.
don't want to compete with Channel Islands or CI or Mayhem. Like those guys are, I'll order mayhems, you know, I'll order CIs. Like I'm not looking to do any of that. And
So
convert.
what are
Like,
you building then? What are you interested
yeah.
in
So
building?
like I'm interested in like servicing certain people for certain waves on certain days. And that's what I realize I've become is like, hey, there I have this niche need to like ride this wave on this day. And like all of these are those things. Like that's why I make them. I don't make them to like make a sub driver or to make a dumpster diver two or any of those really. Like I definitely will hit like standards like a San Diego fish or some version of that. But even that I kind of renounced over time. And I'm looking to make like specific specialized equipment for like our waves and like surrounding waves. That's it, you know. Maybe an ocean
Um,
beach gun, you know, sometimes I'll get like a West Coast order of like, I need this for this wave. But for the most part, it's what's in front of me. And like our waves are so different, like so different. So that keeps me busy.
well, if you go to the beach today, what percentage of surfers are riding Jersey built boards as opposed to international brands or imported?
Today, you know, it's like feast or famine here. It's either they're riding soft tops or they're riding like my boards or a couple other local people's boards. There's no like, there's a knowing audience, like a surf bro, like a surf hammer, whatever you want to call that, like the guys that are on the north side of the HP pier, like that. There's a very small percentage of that person here. Like some are great surfers and they know like that they need 26 liters for the CI Pro and they need it at this, but everyone else is either like, I'll ride a soft top until it gets really cranking, and then they need like a step up. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏, there's some 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏s, you know. The 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏s now are made through Michael Barron. So a lot of connections that Michael's had with the East Coast, which are numerous, a lot of those locations opened up the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 accounts. Yeah, I don't know. It's actually DK and Michael works through that. I should
Right.
specifically, but anyway, it's
So
a it's a
what
thing.
percentage do you think on any given day at the beach? Do you see New Jersey board ridden board? I'm just trying to juxtapose this to when you
Yeah.
grew up and you
Yes,
were
yes, yes,
ordering
yes,
boards from
yes, yes.
California.
Um, I, like I'd say like my whole crew, I'd say probably like 70% of the lineup maybe, or like on like at least at my specific wave. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, if you ain't on
Well,
one,
good.
you're not getting any wave, you know? So
Good.
that's it. So a bunch of my friends, a bunch of the Groms, some of the older guys, but yeah, like it's the people I surf with. And some people are like, aren't you amazed that all these people are riding your boards here? I'm like, well, dude, I surf with these people all the time, all the time. That's all we do is like hang out, talk, fish, watch the kids together. So like it's like you spend enough time somewhere, you meet enough people, it's just what happens. That's how it goes, you know.
And the boards, I mentioned this the other day to Chaz on air, but the boards look increasingly more refined and
Yeah.
sophisticated and
Yeah.
also distinct, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the,
It's a
the,
it's such a long play, like board design and like
it is.
aesthetic. And it really is like I know that so sounds so simple, but Lord, like if you like from my shaping process to like the tools that have created the shaping process, from the templates and then the renouncement of things, and looking into a mirror and being like, no, I got to do it again, and eating shit and being told like, no, this isn't it. It's like it's been like 25 years, literally. This is my 25th summer of fooling around with surfboards. And I swear, like it's just as hard as when it once was. I've definitely gotten to a point where I'll finish them and be like, oh, that's it. There's less stress, but I think a tremendous amount of it has been like, you just like one board at a time, one board at a time. And that is like the best advice, is like, you learn it in the process. And it's always simple way is the best way.
You have a number for how many boards you've built to
Yeah,
date?
yep, I'm at like I just signed 1758, something like that. So 1700. It's not a ton, but it's enough, and it's an honest number. I think some people write a bunch of scribble on a board, but that's everything I've made out of this current bay. I have, probably a couple hundred in and around my old like garage shop and stuff, but yeah, it's just at that number of like, you're getting there. But yeah.
Um, Also, in regards to managing your time and scaling a business, who runs the actual business itself for you? The accounting, making sure
Yep.
those guys get paid, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's all Rebecca. It's all Rebecca's like
Okay.
the back of the house. I'm the front of the house, or I say I'm just the labor, but I do some collecting here and there. But Rebecca's, we're all through QuickBooks. Not much cash. Some people I'll play with, but for the most part, I don't. We just do it all through the QuickBook portal. If I can suggest anybody, like I feel that they really do a nice kind of process. And yeah, it's just like, it's collated through there, it's organized through there. We're pretty hard on our prices, and like that's just what it is. And there's people, cheaper than us for sure. And I thought McCallum's point about like the race to the bottom, like, well, we're not, we have too much to lose to get into that whole world. And it's a
Totally.
bit brutal to see it play out, especially on the retailer side. Sometimes it's just, I scratch my head, and I don't understand why boards would be sold that cheap through a retail position. But yeah, I insist that the retailers are pushing the price to a point that's competitive with other people, so that I am not, say, like undercutting a Chris Christensen or one of these other people. Like, that's not my model of business at all. And um and I know that that's an easy one too. So many people, especially in the position I'm in, it's like the classic, like, you don't rely on that for whatever. True though it is, we kind of do. And I wanted to say, like, I've got a good amount to lose. I got a house, I got 5 kids, I got a hungry dog. Like, I need the business and I need the money, so I'm not looking to give boards away. And it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for you to do that. So if you're a younger kind of come up, my biggest advice is to get the price you can, but don't sell boards if they're not ready to be sold. And I think that's kind of like a strange dichotomy there, right? Is like, well, I gave him a deal because the board sucked. Well, don't sell a board. Like, don't rush into a sale market until you have something to sell. So to sell. So yeah, I'm lucky for kind of how big we are. I think if we were bigger, Rebecca would probably need help. But I think for the most part, she's got it. And it's kind of like the old, like, Donna Fry or Betsy Liss or these types of ladies that really do kind of say, hey, Skip, hey, Stevie, what are we doing? What's next? Um, and then we have to kind of reiterate or calibrate. I don't know, we're working on this now, right? So yeah, we
Yeah,
have
well,
status meetings and all that stuff.
I'm glad to hear it and see it because I've seen a lot of other guys waste time, not waste time, but spend too much time on things that they're not good at and not be able to focus on
Yeah.
the shaping or whatever, or the
Yeah.
surfing or whatever else it is.
Yeah, that if I could just quickly say too, I think the big thing of what I've done is like, I've prioritized surfing whenever I can. That's just the truth of it. And like, I'm an obsessive in terms of like, get the board in the water as quickly as possible. So it's like, I shape it as fast as I can. I try to get the board glass as quickly as I can. I try to get to that person as quickly as possible. My shop is not like over designed. It's really like analog. My truck, if you look at it, it's an old 2011 Sprinter. It's rusted out. Like, I spend my time like surfing and getting the boards done so that they can surf. like I'm not trying to do anything else. And tons of people come from like engineering backgrounds, and they like over
Yeah.
complicate this whole thing. And we're looking to build out a new shop right now, and it's like I'm laughing. Like if you look at a mechanic shop or if you look at a carpentry shop, it's like millions of dollars in equipment. Surfboard building, it's so analog. It's like good racks, good tape, good sandpaper, an old sander, an old planer, a compressor. That's probably the biggest thing you need, right? And then some good fans and some HVAC work. But otherwise, it's pretty budge. And that has helped Rebecca and I, to keep it that
Yeah.
simple and to keep it that kind of just grassroots. It's money comes in,
Well,
goes out.
the other thing I've seen other than what we just discussed is the opposite, which is not taking care of the accounting, and then the business has a hard
Yeah,
time ever investing in the HVAC and stuff like that you're talking, or just investing in growth,
that's
period.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's good to hear that you've had the support and the help to manage all that stuff.
It's essential. And I can't say enough about my wife and like the, I don't want to say like the understanding, but like the birth of our relationship is through surfing. Like
Mm.
it's it, like she was really into it. I ended up selling her first board, which is a Riot. It was like an old vintage kind of twin fin. And I was like 19. I think she was 15. And I ended up proposing to her back at that beach where I sold that to her. Like from there, it was like we surfed together, we hung together throughout my 20s. Like it was like you never date a girl that surfs. Like you do not want to do that, dude. They will steal all your fun, bro. Like you're and I hate to say it, like all those guys are like, you're not gonna believe it. My wife hates that I surf so much. Can you believe that? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of can. I hate to say that, but like I'm not surprised. And Rebecca surfs a ton. She's tries to get out as often as I do. It's obviously it's hard with children for us, and especially young children, but we always try to ski together. We try to snowboard. We try to do whatever it takes to be together and to like live this life and the surfing life, I should say. And she's been on board for that since day one. So this is like I want to like clarify, like this is nothing new for her and I. This is something that like
Yeah.
we have been like chipping away at. And I should also say it's like all we've ever wanted. We wanted
Mhm.
a good family that revolved around the beach, and we have that. And there's not many days go by that we are bummed or nervous by it. We're pretty accepting of like, okay, kids screaming, this one's having a meltdown, there's sand all over us, the car's filthy, there's nothing in the fridge. We're okay, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get pizza.
Um, I saw Bruce Springsteen wearing a Mencel Surfboards hat on
Yeah.
Instagram. Is he riding your boards? Does he
It's so
shred? Tell
no,
me.
so this is it's not a long story, but it's been a long process of a project that we've been doing. See Here Now is the big concert series out here in Asbury Park, and this year we're hosting Bruce Springsteen and even Trey Anastasio from Fish. And so those two are the mastheads for Sunday night. And each year for See Here Now, thanks to Tim Donnelly and Danny Clinch, they're kind of event co-organizers. They try to do some kind of surfboard build, and they've involved me for the last 4 or 5 years. We've done some cool things with Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, Green Day. Prior to that, I think they had Jack Johnson come. So it's been great, and the people are surfy enough to appreciate it and love it. And anyway, for Bruce, it was like we were really drumming on this idea. And there's an old brand called Challenger Eastern, and it's a legacy kind of 60s brand that was brought here by this guy Carl Tinker West. He was I laugh with him now. He's 89. He's just as cagey. He's very similar to Gordon Clark, very same affect. They almost look alike, and they're, I think, close. They're South Bay boys, if I'm not mistaken. And so Tinker, as he would be called, he's very rarely Carl or Mr. West. He'd go ape shit if you called him Mr. West. But Tinker was the guy that really came to New Jersey and said, "Oh my gosh, there's like incredible waves, there's beautiful women, there's culture. Like, let's make boards here." So he imported Jim Phillips and Michel Junod, and those guys came as shapers. They shaped a bunch of Challenger Easterns, and so that factory, which was out in 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗃, which is Western Asbury, was like the hub. And I think he was saying he did close to like 60 boards a week at one point, like that amount of volume. And that was the old, like, get a board, put it on your car, drive around, look cool, right? So Springsteen was like a rat from kind of Western Monmouth, Freehold specifically. He came to the beach. He loved the pony. He loved the McCanns on Cookman. And so the beginnings of all that, he would play around in Tinker's surfboard shop. I think that's mentioned in some songs. As a kid growing up, I was not a Springsteen fan. It's kind of one of those things like, Dave, do you like the Beach Boys? You know, and you're like, oh,
I've learned to appreciate him.
yeah, well, there I am, right? And I listen to the lyrics. I know the places he sings about. My mom grew up in Asbury as a young girl, and my grandparents owned a small little kind of boarding house, Polish kind of hotel hostel there on Sunset Lake in 58, 59. So it's like, the city's like a part of us. And anyway, Tinker is definitely older now, but he's still just as sharp. And so we went there for a couple of weeks, and we made a bunch of we made two beautiful replica boards from his old templates from back in 68, 69. We shaped them, and we're gonna get them glassed, some with some mosaic photos of the E Street Band and Bruce. And so we said it would be sick to get Springsteen's signature on them. And these will go eventually to auction, and proceeds will go to a nonprofit. And so what Springsteen, we got to go meet him. And so long story short is, we got the signature. He was a total G of a human, just like beautiful and cool and like rad. And it just, the whole thing was like, I can't believe, I'm a big fan of the Ben Stiller show, the Legends of Springsteen skit. Do you know that? When they were like,
I've not seen that.
it's amazing, but it's like, basically he goes to the bar where you're having a beer, and Bruce like plays a show, and it's like an endless show, and then he cleaned the bar, and then he delivered a baby, and then he ended up like crocheting something for me, and I woke up in my bed tucked in with like a brand new like knitted hat. I don't know. Anyway, so like I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is happening in front of me in real life. I can't believe this. So we leave him. Rebecca gave him a merch bag to give to him, give him the bag. Oh, thanks so much. That's so nice. You cool, cool, cool. You know, like, that's sick. That's sick. And then I'm leaving, and I see him like holding up the t-shirt in the window and like kind of like looking at it. And so anyway, I'm like, whatever, we'll see. So a couple days later, I wake up in the morning, and my buddy sends me, he's like, hey, is Bruce wearing one of your hats? And a hat was put in the bag. And it's from my buddies. They own this company, these Yikes hats. And I'm like, I don't know. And so I looked in, and I'm like, there it is, like, holy cow, he's wearing fucking hat. Like, this is insane. And like, just what a good dude. And like, did not have to, obviously, nor did I think he would, but there it is. And another Legends of Springsteen moment of like,
Totally.
yeah, he's that legit. So anyway, he is. I mean, so we're psyched. The boards, I guess you got to go now and go kind of finish him up. And we got to film some more footage for this video release that we'll do with it. But it's a great project. It's a dream complete for me to meet Tinker. I had met him years ago with Tom Eaton, to go look at his space, but it wasn't right. And since then, he really took a liking to me. We met a bunch of times, shaped a bunch, had to go back and get his signature. He was just cantankerous and hysterical and awesome and super generous. And once he figured out that, we were real surfers, quote, he was really into it, and took a real kind of shine of like where equipment's gone. He pulled out this planer that was just like so beat up and so old, and like it ripped half the blank. So I had to like bring in the new one. And he's like, I'm not using that. I'm not using that. And then used it, and it's like, this is amazing. You need to get me one of these.
That's
So
amazing.
it was, yeah, no battery powered tools. He was going nuts, but it was just a great project. And yeah, he's hoping to maybe write a book too. So I may have to kind of get working with him over the winter and stuff. So
Did you see Springsteen's appearance on Curb Your Enthusiasm this past season?
I didn't, I'm a classic. Like, I didn't look at any of Game of Thrones until it was almost over. And then I
Yeah.
binged like the 7 seasons to that. And with Curb, I watch on the flights, but I didn't. And I'm a huge
Okay.
Larry David fan. And I was kind of mourning, like, I can't, this is it. And now I got to watch this. But
It's good. It's
I
good.
bet
Springsteen plays he plays himself, but it's an epic little story arc.
he's self-aware, he's humble enough. And like, I want to say, like, it's 2024, it's like, political mania at its apex. And for that guy to like, there's a lot of people that are from Jersey that'll tell you from their Jersey, but they live in Seal Beach, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, They live at somewhere with a beach, or they live in like Hawaii. And so for the fact that that guy is from here, says that he's from here, remains living here, and continues to like be a part of our community as like appropriately as he can, you know, is like, I don't think that can't go unsaid enough. And like the older I get, the more I realize how like some people are from here and like are proud to be from here, and some people are from here like, yeah, it's sick, cool, catch you. He ain't that, and I think that's really cool, and he really will walk the walk in that capacity. And I don't know, nowadays, dude, there's a ton of inauthentic, kind of cheap people that will go for anything. And I don't think that's it. And his show on the beach in Asbury Park will most likely be an indictment of a lot of that. I really think so. So
When
I'm
is that?
jazzed up. That'll be the weekend of September 13th and 14th.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. The final wrap up couple of questions. If you could
Yeah.
order one board from anybody on the planet, what would you order right now?
Ooh. That's a complex one, but I've been wrestling this. It's either I'm gonna pull the trigger and try to get a skip, and I finally have my slush fund kind of built up. But potentially Ryan Birch is coming out east, and I think I'm going to be hanging with him a bunch, and I think I'm going to be getting a board from him. So I'm going to say Ryan. I'm going to say Ryan's the guy that I really want. I'm a big Ellis Erickson fan. There's a couple other young buck surfers that are like the real deal, and they're not as young as they once were, right? But I gravitate towards like the guy that surfs, the person that's making that board. Rachel Lord, I'm a fan of Rachel. I could see myself getting a Lord board. Um, yeah, that's it.
What would you get from Skip?
This is the question. So I think I've netted out for a 6'9" long fish, glass on, single foil fins, and just clear. That's
Yeah.
it. Maybe like a dark stringer, but probably whatever he can get. So it's like the fastest, quickest, most available order. How long is that one?
5'6".
David panned the camera up if you're on podcast land, and he's like 5'6", clear double foiled fins, which I don't mind.
How
But
can you see all that from there?
dude, come on,
That's
David.
impressive. That
How do
is
you know it's a Chateau
impressive.
Margaux bottle? Uh,
Um,
but
yeah,
anyway, that's it. I was gonna go long and go nuts and just say that's it. I'm pulling the ripcord and go for the 11-0 something or another, but I don't think I'm gonna. I think it's gonna be the long fish that's gonna supply me great days of surfing in a wetsuit anywhere, and then into my older years. I think that's kind of where I've netted out. So
good. Yeah. Well, the three that you mentioned appeal to me too. And every time I'm in the fortunate situation where I get to see some of those birch boards pretty
yeah,
regularly.
yeah,
Go to LSD or whatever, and there'll be a rack of them that are ready to go for customers. And I'm like, wow, these things are so different than anything else.
totally.
And the same thing with Ellis Erickson, that light kite kind of
Yeah,
EPS
it's
thing. I'm like, I
beautiful.
don't have anything like this. It very much appeals to me. It's totally distinct,
Yeah.
but you can only
I
order
could
so
just,
many.
if I could gush on Ellis, like I think with Ellis for me, it's like I shape a lot of EPS, and it's sled cut EPS. It's not formed for you. So for the listener, it's a much more like crude blank. And Ellis does a lot of hot wiring too, which is really cool and resourceful and eco-friendly, in my opinion. I think it's probably like one of the better ways that you can consciously recycle the EPS. And I try to do that with all of my EPS builds as well. And he is just a great surfer. So like the application of the hands and the head, or the hands and the feet, I think he has. I also just Bryce Young too. I think is just such a great surfer. And I haven't looked at the boards that much, but I just the following the fall line was just mind blowing, and
Mind blowing, dude.
mind blowing. And you can't. His interview with you was great, but he is just like the scope of a project like that, finally for it to be like, no, it took me a while. It's like so nice, so great. Oh, my mom filmed. It's like even better. And so yeah, I think like those are the kind of top dogs in my eyes. I'm probably forgetting somebody I know, but
Sure.
that's it.
Okay, good. Um, what final question? What'd you ride today?
Ah, I was stuck without board, so I rode this baby. This is the one I made for my oldest, Gwyneth. It's a PTK, kind of like my number one kind of fish model. I have them on quads. I have them on these little like catch surf quads. So I took the PTK and squished it to like a 5.2, I think that is 5.4, 5.2, and I put a quad set up on it, but it got caught in a windstorm and it just the bag got filled with sand.
Mm.
Uh, the sand, it was like almost like 80 grit on it. So we stripped it today, re-waxed it, and then I paddled it out for a couple sets. And I could barely paddle it, but I got it into like two little runners, and we have an 18-second interval swell today, which is very rare. So I got like two of those sets. I waited and waited and got two, and that was it. If I wasn't, I would have probably ridden one of these like kind of long little 3-fin gliders I have. And they've been really good this summer. That's been a great year of kind of understanding more different fin complexes and trying to get less fins. So James has been making me some cool little kind of removable fins to play with that. So yeah.
Awesome. How can non-Jersey listeners get aboard?
Super easy. Instagram obviously is a great place for that. So, following us on there, throwing us a message through Instagram. We have a direct link to the email and the website, and we have a functioning website that you can put a deposit through, pay through, put the order in, and then depending on the order, if need, I reach out, we chat, and then it goes from there. So we're always grateful for returning customers. I just want to stress that again, like you really have over the course of a career, like you remember great customers, but sometimes they go unthanked. And like I have such a great stable of people that have like stood by us and supported us and bought hats and merch and the little that we do. But like I really am grateful to the people I make boards for, from out in Montauk to here to throughout the mid-Atlantic and even the West Coast. Like I'm just really grateful for the chances. And I can only do so many a year, but the ones that I do, it's the greatest gift, as corny as that sounds. It really is. So thanks to all of you.
It's a beautiful note to end on, but I have one final question.
Yeah, great.
Shout out the retailers that you work with.
Yes, especially. Yeah, I Bear Wires and Spring Lake are a group of
Still.
people that I just they're great guys. They've been through a lot this year. I'm thinking of Adam, I'm thinking of Brian. They're just great dudes that really are constantly trying to reinvent themselves. Their demographic, kids shift and change, and businesses shift and change, and economies do. And those guys really have supported our community. They do a ton of work. And I can't not say them. Brave New World in Point Pleasant took me on, and they just opened up a location in Manasquan, and they've been great to me. They've definitely ordered first before I think like, or Adam and Bear Wires did, but I think I was probably the first local guy that they brought in there, and I'm really grateful for that, and kind of like herald some of that with them. And that was a big opportunity. That's where I bought my first board as a kid. And then Farias down in LBI. Brian Farias runs an awesome surf and sport, and he's a good friend of Chris Christensen and a bunch of others. And I've really been able to kind of service them where they have gaps in their boards. And lastly, and honestly, maybe most importantly, is Chris Gentile in Pilgrim. He really is a good friend to me. He's an incredible mentor. The self-doubt in shaping surfboards, clickiness is just endless. And I think Chris has been through it like 4 or 5 times, enough to just give you the reset and the like, don't worry about that. Like, that's not. And he'll just kind of laugh or tell you straight up, like, no, this is what you really should be doing, and this is how it should be. So I really think that that's maybe the greatest surf shop ever built out, I'm going to claim. It's just too beautiful. It's too curated. It's thoughtful. Everything's done with like an intention. And that community is blessed to have him. And I can't say enough good about Chris Gentile and Pilgrim. They really have done a lot for New York surfing, and specifically the West End of New York surfing.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Charles, get back to work, man. Sorry to keep you for 30 minutes longer than we
It's
planned.
great. Listen, I'm on my way. I'm literally gonna jump in right from here, right to the van, and giddy up. But David, I said it the first time, I'll say it again. I can't thank you enough. Rebecca and I have been monthly subscribers to Surf Splendor. If you're not giving that $5 a month donation, you're a fool. It's a
We've never even raised prices.
small penny to pay. We run it right through the QuickBooks account, and it's never seen, never thought of. And I swear, in this last year, you've had so many great Hammer episodes, and I really just want to thank you for thinking of Rebecca and I, thinking of us. You're just like the best long distance friend I have. I hate to say that, but you're on it. You're always sending me goodies, and it doesn't go unnoticed or appreciated. So thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you. I look forward to the Christmas card every year. And yeah, thanks for the shout out. I'm honored to be able to do the work, but it's nice to stay in contact that way too. You know what I mean? Like I'm putting stuff out there that even if we're not talking, you're catching it, you're putting stuff out, I'm
Oh,
catching it. And then when
yeah.
we do reconnect, it
Yes,
feels
sir.
like no time has passed.
That's always how it is, man. I've got friends for 35 years now, and the good ones, it's like no time's ever passed. And it's always that way, at least for me. It's like I kind of maybe avoid the ones that wouldn't have that chance, but the ones that I know will, they're always there waiting for you. So
All right, well, keep cranking out babies, keep doing work, and
more work, less babies.
all right,
All right.
chat soon.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.
Surf Splendor.